Thank you so much for coming. This is a great attendance, especially considering that I was competing with the baseball game out there. But it's great to see you guys. I'm curious, the subject of this conversation this afternoon is keeping sales and marketing in line, which would sort of imply to me that we have probably a lot of sales and marketing people in the audience. So could I see hands of who's sales and who's marketing, and then we'll do a class for others. Sales? Nobody shy there. Yeah. Marketing? Wow, very, very evenly balanced. Something else? Both. Both? Okay. So, someone in the back?
Customer experience.
Customer experience. Excellent. What else? Biz dev. Great. Others? Any finance people? Yes, we have a loan finance guy in the back. We'll look to you for the numbers. Okay. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about is basically based on a whole bunch of years of experience. So as Chad said, depending on how you count out my current company, which is called 50s, my third or my 19th startup, I kind of come from a world of how do you bring your first products to market? How do you breathe life into those first products? How do you figure out who's going to buy them? How do you package, price, position, bring them to market, and all that stuff? So I've kind of, for most of my career, had one foot in the sales camp and one foot in the marketing camp. And if I had another foot, it would be in the product development camp, but I've never been a coder. So this is kind of what everyone thinks of. Let's see. Here's mine. I should have practiced. Magic here. Did someone push a button somewhere? I don't even know where the computer is that my slides are clicking on. I guess I didn't take a survey if there were any IT people. So I just wrote this week. My company is all of about a dozen people or so, and I have a couple of salespeople, a couple of marketing people among that. And what's this guy saying? Show me the money, or
Where am I being the leads? It's the end of the quarter. I need this deal.
It wasn't on. What's she saying?
Get your own leads. Get back on the phone.
How about this? I just gave you 216 leads. I went to the trade show, we spent 20 grand, there was no, what do you mean you got no leads? I kind of think, so most of my career I've been in more of a marketing role. But this is kind of the bottom line. In my first startup, which was called Clarify, back in 1991, I was the VP of marketing, and the company had 12 people, just like my company does today, and no salespeople, no product, no nothing. And I got it a little bit off the ground, and the CEO said to me, Donna, if you and I can't go close the first couple of deals, there's no sense bringing a sales team on board. So let's go out there and see what we can do to close some business. And that was kind of my first lesson. So frankly, I really worry about marketing people who don't want to get out there and talk to customers and figure out what it's going to take to successfully sell the products. So this is words to live by. As an entrepreneur or an innovator, you definitely have to be a visionary and all excited about kind of where you're going, but you also need to really be a pragmatist and figure out, before you go off into some dark corner and build something, make sure that somebody wants to buy it. So this is kind of the bottom line. I love this New Yorker comic. In my career, working in 19 different startups, I kind of have gleaned some things about what it takes. And as a CMO or a marketing executive, there's kind of two things that you need to think about. One is you really need to get the product market fit right. And you need to really understand what are we building and who's going to buy it, and understand that. And the second is, once you figure that out, it's marketing's job to make it as easy as possible for sales people to make a lot of money. And because the more money they make, the more money the company makes, the more successful you are, and everybody wins. So if you kind of put that hat on as you're figuring out your sales and marketing strategies, it helps a lot. The two panels we're going to have this afternoon are going to talk a lot, I think, about that second thing, about how do you make it as easy as possible to sell, how do you generate leads, how do you hand those leads off successfully. I've done a lot of that, but most of my career, most of my teaching work that I do is focused on product market fit, and how do you make sure that what you're building is what people want to buy. So I've developed kind of a very simple model that illustrates this, that product and market development are strategic and iterative processes that have to be done simultaneously, or in other words, it takes two to tango. And for the visual learners in the group, I think of it this way. So a lot of people are very familiar with the product development process. So someone comes up with, this is a marketing person's simplified characterization of the product development process. So you start off with some idea and put it on a whiteboard, maybe build some wireframes, sketch it out, decide you're going to build something. You need to debug it, maybe look for some early customers, some beta customers. At some point, you've tested enough, you think, all right, it's ready for production. A little bit after that, the product goes live, and you roll out globally. So when I got into venture in 1998, a lot of the entrepreneurs would come knowing very well how to do this. But there was a huge piece of what it takes to build a company that was being ignored, and there just was no science or no research about the other half. And that is this. You need to build a market at the same time as you're building a product. So you need to figure out what is your product market fit, and how do you identify who those early customers are going to be. So while you are coming up with ideas about what the product is, you're having exploratory meetings with customers. From those exploratory meetings, a couple of things have to come out of it. Not just product feedback, which is obvious, giving you ideas of how to better fit for these customers, but you're building credibility in the marketplace. You're establishing your reputation. And that's a key part. If you came from a bigger company and you were used to a beta testing cycle, my first job was with Sun Microsystems, which was reasonably well established at the time. And our beta testing process was basically we find someone who will do us a favor to test the product and give us feedback. That doesn't work in a startup. The big difference is that when you're an established company, you have customers, you have a reputation, you already have a market. When you're in a startup, you don't. So these first customers that are going to see your product are the first testers, are going to determine kind of your fate in your future. These first customers need to be selected very strategically so that you're choosing the markets you want to be in long term. So it's going to be really easy for your salespeople to sell and grow really quickly. So yes, you need product feedback, but you also need to build credibility. From this, you need to get paying customers. And again, a lot of people think, a lot of entrepreneurs will come in thinking, well gosh, they're doing me a favor, they're testing it, they're giving me feedback. That's not enough. You're not asking, your bar is not high enough. You need to also be getting them to pay for the product. Now maybe it's not top dollar. I'll usually set a price for these early customers early on and give them a 50% discount because they're going to be really valuable to me. They're going to provide references and feedback and credibility and all those things. But they need to pay because you learn a lot when you ask for money. And if you aren't learning that in these early stages, you end up wasting around funding. So from these paying customers, you need to get reference accounts. So it's not enough to just have a customer pay. For instance, when I was in venture, Intel had a policy that they wouldn't provide references. So I thought, it just doesn't make sense to go to Intel as an early customer for one of the 16 startups I worked in, because they're not going to help me get the second and the third and the fifth customer. So you need to make sure that out of these early customer relationships, you build credibility, you build the right product, you're getting some money, and they're going to be a great reference. Not until then do you have marketing. So all this stuff is happening at the same time as you're building your product. And that's how you get product market fit. And that's how sales and marketing best get along, by aligning the product and your customers. So I really think of marketing as sales with a longer time horizon. It's the marketing teams and the executive, the CEO's job to make sure that what you're creating in your company is not just going to sell today, but it's going to sell a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and that you're in the right place. But it's all about sales, because he or she who has the most paying customers wins, right? So think of this model. Okay, so what often happens is, if you don't realize the need for this market development cycle, is, you build a product, you throw it over the wall and say, okay, we're ready, go sell it, sales, and they kind of get over here, they ask for money, there's no customers, right? So you haven't built, you haven't laid the groundwork that you need to lay early on. And what that means to a startup, from my venture days, is you probably just wasted a round of funding. Let's go back to the start, do not pass go, do not collect $200, build your relationships, build your credibility, and then earn the right to have paying customers. So that's pretty intuitive. You're probably all sitting there going, okay, we drove all this way, dealt with this traffic and parking and everything else for you to tell me that. I knew that already. So the rest of this talk is going to be about what people do wrong, what I've done wrong, because it's really obvious how it should be done, and it's really hard to do. So there are 3 common mistakes that we'll talk about. One is that innovators fall in love with their idea. So here's this guy, he's giving his presentation, he's got a whole bunch of PowerPoint slides just like I do here. And his audience is snoozing. So he's focused on his product. What you need to do as an entrepreneur to figure out where your market opportunities are is listen, not talk, right? Good salespeople know this. Sales is about listening, not about talking. Sales is about understanding who your customers are. Seems pretty obvious. Sometimes it's the technology that fails. Sometimes it's the team that implodes. But more often than either of those is you haven't figured out the exact where to start in the market. So first point is spend your time listening and not talking. And I'm going to give you some tools for how to do that. Okay. My next point here. Okay, is this is a little test for you. What do customers care about? They care about French fries. Good. They care about, a lot of times, they care about return on investment, they care about price, they care about budgets, they care about ROI, they care about what's in it for me. They care about
Deliver what you promise.
that you deliver what you promise. It's really simple. It just boils down to this. They care about themselves. And that's not a bad thing. They're not being selfish. They care about, what's going to make them successful in their jobs, in their lives, in their days, right? They don't care about your product. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. So when you're doing your early market research, you kind of do a mindset shift, put yourself in the shoes of those customers and realize what they care about is themselves. You can learn a lot. So you may think you want to make a French fry holder like this, because wouldn't that be nice? Because you have this great product idea. But in reality, this is kind of what your customer's doing, and she can't reach that, and she's busy having her hamburger, and she's already got the drink thing taken up with her, the holder taken up with her drink, and it's just not about your crazy product idea, it's about her. And so what you need to do really early on is you're understanding, kind of trying to identify what markets you're going after is what I call the 3 C's. The 3 C's are this. You need to prove to your customer, to this wonderful woman here, or a B2B customer, if that's your market, that you comprehend what their situation is. So you understand that her life is not so orderly. That you understand what's going on in the day-to-day life of your customer. So you comprehend. You're competent to address those problems or opportunities. In other words, you have the background, you have the experience, you have the knowledge to solve their problems or deliver this opportunity. And third, that you care, right? All the salespeople in the room know how much sales is about you care. It's a relationship. It's the fact that you comprehend their problem, you're competent to solve it, and you care enough to make sure that that gets done. So, second mistake is thinking it's about product. It's not. It's about the customer. Third thing that makes this hard is, you're pretty excited about, you can't be too in love with your product. Your customers care about themselves. You need to demonstrate the 3 C's. And it's probably dawning on you now that these early days are much more about listening and a lot less talking. And so you go in to have your customer meetings and you realize, gosh, this customer just doesn't have the same vision, or are they not so smart? Are they distracted? What's going on? Don't expect your customer to tell you a vision. You've got your vision, and that's great. Ask your customers about their reality. Just find out, what is their day-to-day, what are their problems, what are their priorities. When you figure that out, you can then apply your vision. Because if you're asking customers to imagine a scenario years from now, they're going to tell you what they want, what they think you want to hear. And you're much better off dealing with concrete questions about reality. So what I'm saying here is improve your odds of product market fit by talking to a lot of potential customers before you bring a new product to market. So if it's an enterprise type product that you're bringing to market, I would suggest at least 30 different potential customers. I would say you want to cast a really wide net. So one of the companies I worked in was an email server company. So this is 10 years ago or so. And we talked to everyone from the email administrator who gave us a whole bunch of really good information about what was going on, the trials and tribulations of managing corporate email, to the CIO. And you learn so much from that, from those conversations. So these are the things that you need to know. And notice very little of what's on this list is actually about product features and functionality. What you're trying to figure out is, what are this customer's priorities? So one of my favorite questions, when you go to ask for the check, actually what happened in that email server company is we had these great conversations with these email administrators, and they loved it, and they all wanted the product. And we got up to the CIO and we said, here it is, we're ready, you want to be one of our beta testers, it's going to cost you $5,000. And they said, not happening, right? And the reality was, yes, it was really important to the administrator to solve that problem, but it was number 7 on the CIO's list. So you really have to have a good perspective about where the priorities are in the customer's mind. What are they doing to solve that problem today? And is it good enough? So what are the competitors promising? So that's probably your best source of competitive information is not reading the competitors' websites. It's talking to the customers that they're talking to. Because don't make the mistake of selling your futures against your competitors, what you think is your competitors offering or their present. You have to understand kind of where are they going to be able to successfully sell where you're going. A lot of people ask me at this point, well then aren't you giving away the store? Aren't you sharing all your secrets? Aren't they going to go tell the competitors what you're doing? And the reality is if you're listening more than talking, which is what you should be when you're really doing this kind of strategic work, you're not telling them how your product works. You're not telling them the details. You're not telling them things. Remember, they don't care about your product. They care about themselves. So that's what you're having conversations about. You don't have to give away all the secrets. Then you got to get to, okay, well, how would you make decision? How would you decide to buy this or to use this? And who makes those decisions? And who influences those decisions? And who has the budget? So eventually what you want to get to is understand what is the minimum viable product that I can bring to market. Have you heard this expression, MVP? Probably. Because the sooner you can get a product in the hands of customers who are going to be happy with it, the sooner you start building a revenue stream, building reference accounts, and your market is born. If you go into, again, your dark cube and start developing a whole bunch of functionality without having these conversations and choosing exactly where are we starting in the market first, you end up, you either build too much, you build the wrong thing, or you deliver too late. So what you're trying to do is get the MVP to market in the hands of your target customers as quickly as possible. And that's how you grow fast. And those are the ones that will become your first reference accounts. So choosing those reference accounts such that they're going to bring you to a big bubble at the top of my chart is where you want to be. So it's a very strategic process. So but it's simple, right? You're trying to create the right product for the right customers, and you're trying to learn how to sell it at the same time as a startup, before you run out of money. So some tips. And again, some of these things are pretty straightforward, but I'm a huge fan of face-to-face visits. I had a meeting with one of my prospects for our company about a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of made the mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make and start showing her a demo, and she's like, no, I believe you guys can build technology. That's good. What I want to know is how you solve my problem. And it just hit home, here I am, I teach this stuff, but it's really hard to do. And when you get in front of a customer, there's just no substitute for really kind of looking them in the eye and understanding what's going to help them in their day-to-day worlds. So asking a lot of questions, again, you do much more listening than talking. You actually establish more credibility by listening to them, drawing out their issues and responding to that, then standing up and giving a pitch like that guy on the slide I had. I'm a big fan of getting organized. So if you're going to go out and have 30 meetings or so, for my current company now, we're a gifting company. We have local merchants, and we have local merchants who sell gifts, and we have businesses and consumers who buy gifts. We match them up based on geography and things like that. So we went out and talked to about 60 different merchants before we figured out what solution was going to meet their needs. In 60 conversations, you can't remember who said what. So it's really critical to kind of put together something like this. Just one sheet, I like one sheet, write down what is it that I want to know, and then I use the same sheet in every meeting. You don't go line by line and fill in the sheet. That's like the kiss of death. Boring, don't do that. But have a conversation and make sure that most of the blanks get filled in the process. Because then when you end up and you've got 60 sheets of paper and everything, line 3 is filled in with someone's comments about a certain question, you can make some sense of that information. So it's really, really worth a little bit of time up front to make sure that all the time you're going to spend collecting this information is useful. I also like to make it fun. So one of the things, I work with a lot of teams of Stanford students, and they go to the design school, which is just an amazing place, and they learn amazing things, and then they teach me. So we had one team of students, and rather than going out and interviewing people, they put together little cards that had features on them, and they put them all on the table in front of a customer, and they'd say, pick up the cards that you think matter. Well, I mean, that's really simple. What they're asking for is just the customer to help them prioritize it, but it was fun. And so all of a sudden your 15-minute meeting turns into an hour meeting because you're having a conversation, you're playing a game, you're making it fun. So think of how can you do things differently. Don't stand there with your form and fill in your form, but bring tools, bring toys, bring ways to keep the discussion creative. And last but not least, cast a really wide net. So, going back to my email server company, we went and talked to companies that had 10 people, and we talked to companies that had 10,000 people, and we were really open-minded about it early on, and you just keep kind of narrowing down. I think the sweet spot's going to be 500 to 1,000 people. I think they live in, their companies in San Francisco, et cetera, and, build your profile of who your initial targets are, and therefore, what is the minimum viable product to address that particular customer's needs, and then build that. So, as I said, the definition of winning is he or she who has the most paying customer wins. Just keep that in mind, and again, a lot of this is intuitive, it's straightforward, you'll do the right things. To summarize, what we're looking for here is aligning sales and marketing requires the right product market fit. So you have to be developing the market at the same time as you're developing the product, or you'll probably waste around of money, waste a lot of time. So be talking to the customers, keep those bubble chart in mind. Innovators and entrepreneurs often make mistakes. They fall in love with their product. They don't listen to customers. They talk too much, too product focused, and they're not asking the right questions. So one of my favorite questions you should always ask is, please tell me why you would not buy this. Because that's what you really want to know, and customers will tell you. And if they tell you, you can address it, either to them right there or back in the shop in your development process. So increase your odds of success with a lot of face-to-face customer research, and I hope that you find these tips useful and can put them all to work. And I'm happy to take some questions now if anybody wants. Yes?
So earlier in the process, you said as you meet with potential customers, understand their needs, you want to take customers.
Yeah.
Right? So assuming you have a pricing schedule, what are your thoughts and experiences on your initial customers discounting? Is that a...
So the question was, I had on my slide, do you have paying customers early on? So what are my thoughts on discounting? So your initial customers are going to do a lot of favors for you, right? They're going to be forgiving because you're going to have quality issues, and they're going to need to be patient, and you need to appreciate that. So one of the companies I worked in, they already had been selling stuff and just kind of at random pricing, and they said, Donna, we need you to do some pricing and set the pricing model for us so we know how much we're discounting. But I typically, in the really early stages, give even up to a 50% discount, because those customers are worth their weight in gold, and they're going to do a lot. But if you don't have a pricing schedule, then they don't know they got a 50% discount, so you want to make sure they know that. And you also have a conversation about what you need from them in return. More questions? Okay. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. I will turn it over to Sharon.